Hey there, Internet! We're glad to have you here for this episode on the lore of Asmodius, the demon host of Aussies and the embodiment of lust. With this, we hope to get a series started that talks about the lore both in real life and in the show Helluva Boss of the demon avatars. First, let's start with some history. Way back when, before the internet, there was paper. Around that time, people had to learn for themselves or from someone else what it was that made the world go round. Some thought it was God, and others thought we were all stuck on the back of a ginormous sea turtle floating in space. Yes, there was indeed infinite waterfalls we could fall into, but so far the turtle hasn't gone in that direction yet. Some people, though, chose a less traditional way of studying. Instead of getting other people to teach them, they thought the demons could do it. So they started learning rituals and spells and what materials were needed to do so. Needless to say, that's crazy. But this knowledge was compiled into a book known as the Ars Goetia, though I call it the Lesser Key of Solomon. My grandma had a copy of it at her house, and it was better than the Bible to pass the summer days. But moving on, the Lesser Key is a pretty funky title to have because it implies that there is a greater key, which technically there is, but not official. But then again, none of this is really official, so knock yourselves out. For the purposes of this video, we'll be referring to the Lesser Key of the Ars Goetia. For those of you who haven't read the book, the Lesser Key is a thick with 2 C's tome that specifies a sort of spirits that exist outside of the borders of our world, ranging from the souls of the dead all the way to the most powerful angels of heaven and the most destructive demons of hell. Asmodius, the titular character here, is one such demon. According to the Lesser Key, Asmodius was one of 4 mighty kings and princes that Solomon bound into a brass vessel, a fancy way of saying jar. Asmodius, Belial, Beleth, and Gomp were the chiefest, and it is supposed it was for their pride, for Solomon never declared why he thus bound them. Asmodius is the 32nd spirit spoken of in the Lesser Key, known as Asmodei. He is described as a great king, strong and very powerful, and appears before the summoner, or exorcist, with 3 heads. In the show Helluva Boss, episode 7, this is displayed by having Asmodius' head flanked by 2 shadowy manifestations that mimic his mood and sometimes his singing. Firstly, there is a head of a bull, then the head of a man, and finally, a ram. Apparently, Asmodius appears also wearing serpent tails and favors fire as a way of expressing his displeasure. This is also seen because the dude cannot stop letting flames pop and puff from time to time when he gets worked up. If one follows the instructions of the Lesser Key, Asmodius shows up and will give you the Ring of Virtues, and he will also teach you arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and all handicrafts absolutely. For a spirit of lust, he sure sounds like a usual middle school teacher. Asmodius isn't alone in the ranks of the Deadly Seven, and he stands shoulder to shoulder with the likes of Lucifer, Charlie's dad, Mammon, we saw him in episode 2 with the whole Lululand fiasco, Leviathan, Beelzebub, Satan, and Belphegor. We'll delve into each of these bad boys and gals in the future with more videos like this one, but needless to say, there is plenty of fuel to lead us along and teach us some dope lore. Very quickly, we'll go over who each of them is and what they do. Asmodius is the embodiment of lust. Lucifer represents pride. Mammon is the embodiment of greed, with Leviathan representing envy. Beelzebub is in charge of gluttony. Satan takes center stage in the anger management classes, and finally, Belphegor has got to be the laziest good-for-nothing that ever lived. Even couch potatoes do more than he does. Asmodius is considered to be the embodiment of lust by the Peter Binsfield Catalog of Demons, which is a respected occult manuscript. At least as respected as any occult object can be. Anyway, moving on. Some people might have been curious as to why Stolas, who was previously shown to be a powerful demon prince, was panicky regarding the fact that the bar he was at with Blitz was the property of Asmodius. That's a simple answer, dear listener. Asmodius is leagues above Stolas in the hierarchy of demons. Let's put it this way. First there's Lucifer, Charlie's dad in the embodiment of pride. Then there's Lilith, allegedly Charlie's mother, and Charlie herself as the princess of hell and thus royalty. Then there's the Deadly Seven, because they represent emotions and sins that are indulged upon by humans in excessive quantities. Then you have the overlords and princes like Stolas, and finally everyone else that doesn't really rank up high enough to warrant mention in this listing. So let's take a look at what Asmodius does in the Helluva Boss setting, since we just talked about his rules in real life. Or at least as real as they can get anyway. In the canon setting of Helluva Boss, Asmodius is a very influential character. We need to keep in mind that he was able to humiliate Stolas in public. Stolas, who is a royal. The imp at the entrance who bounces for the club even referred to Stolas as Your Highness. That's a title reserved exclusively for people in royalty, so clearly it's not something to sneeze at. Later on, Asmodius refers to Stolas as my Dark Lord, but let's be perfectly honest here, it's not in a sense of respect. Asmodius is lust, plain and simple. What Blitz did with Stolas and what Stolas did with Blitz is a sign of lust and was driven by lust. Simple as. That's why Asmodius was so pleased with the two of them being there and doing what they had done. Throwing away one's life for a thrust done in passion is the meaning of lust. Let's be candid though. The deadly sins of scripture are all human emotions and desires taken to extremes. Pride is good because it allows us to be happy with what we have accomplished. Pride taken to excess is the nature of the sin, so to speak. Same for lust. It's undeniable that most relationships in the present day are based in some degree on physical attraction or a need to be somewhere else. The Reddit forum known as r/infidelity is full of such elements that prove the point we're making here. Asmodius represents the idea of wanting something and wanting it so badly that you will do anything to get your hands on it. Throwing your life away for a thrust? That's the spirit of lust right there. Losing his wife and child because he was unhappy in his married life and wanting to be with someone else, he ran off, leaving his ex-girlfriend to pay for the hotel, stole her car, and ran 3 rings down to Wrath and maxed her credit cards on shitty horse riding lessons.
God damn it, huh? I don't know why you won't let that go!
You guessed it, that's the spirit of lust. All in all, a lot of things done by the people we see in the season and episodes overall do things driven by lust. Luna gets distracted on episode 3, Spring Broken, because she wants to dig around for a Texas bone. Stolas, well, we've already talked enough about what he's done. However, it warrants mentioning that in the end of episode 5, Harvest Moon, when Stella is talking to Stryker about having her husband assassinated, Stolas is reading a rather aptly named book titled Imps in the Sheets and Why They Are So Hung. So, yeah. It's painfully obvious that Stolas wants the relationship he has with Blitz to be something more emotional instead of the purely physical affair that he has been engaging with from the moment they started. But that's not what Asmodius is about. Considering that they were doing this out of lust, odds are that they are in the hands of the big man himself, which goes even more into play when one thinks about the sheer power that Asmodius has. We've seen all the way from episode 1 how the show depicts very horny individuals and, well, hell isn't exactly the place one would go looking for saints. But even so, the sheer quantity of degeneracy is pretty staggering. So, with all that laid out, who is Asmodius and why is Stolas so afraid of him? One of the most powerful demons in all of hell, second only to Lucifer who rules over the entire realm, he is most likely standing equal to the rest of the Deadly Seven with everyone else, and I do mean everyone, being beneath him. Why the fixation with Fizz or Ollie then? The real answer might very well be that they are friends with benefits, excusing their closeness as that of friendship, or maybe even Asmodius seeing Fizz as a cute pet. But under no circumstances are they in a lovey-dovey relationship just like Moxie and Millie are, for example. Is that true though? In episode 7, we see that Fizz and Asmodius sit in the same balcony, so even though Fizz is an imp, he still has the clout because he's in with the boss. They mock Moxie by taunting him for his refrain about loving Millie, telling each other that they love one another but not really meaning it, and finally berating a very spooked Moxie for singing such love songs in Asmodius' lustful lounge. Can love thrive with lust? Certainly, but it's hard, and Asmodius knows that deep down the regret will eat up at people because let's be honest, Asmodius is a demon king and a toxic individual. Doesn't mean he can't be fun though, like he said in his song. All he wants is to hear about how people want each other, how they need one another. He doesn't disapprove of love per se, but what people go to do at Ozzy's is to sing detailed songs about how they want to their partners in the ass and mouth, and then so they can clean it up with peanut butter sandwiches. That's what it means to be the embodiment of lust after all. Love is nice, but lust is what pays the bills at the lust ring, and Asmodius knows this very, very well. That's why he has the most exclusive club and song joint in all of town. Though maybe his own clout as the embodiment of lust and one of the Deadly Seven can't hurt his potential business. It is, after all, hell where they live at, and power leads. We see it with Alastor in the Hazbin Hotel pilot, after all. Does Asmodius take pleasure in the suffering of others? Maybe. He did seem to be very delighted by Stolas' reaction and was able to further sink him into shame by reminding him that all that he had before he had lost by pursuing an imp that had been giving him the cold shoulder that entire date. So what do you think? Let us know in the comments below what you'd like to know more of. Up next in our Deadly Seven series, we'll be diving into the lore of Lucifer, the fallen angel, and the current king of hell. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment so that the YouTube overlords look down on us kindly and help the video reach more people. Did you think we missed anything? What would you like to see next?